Hey folks, we are recording, starting the cluster add-ons agenda. And sorry, we're getting a little feedback. Anyway, this is the cluster add-ons meeting. We're a sub-project out of SIG Cluster Lifecycle, and we got a little bit of an agenda to talk about. So the first thing we wanted to cover is just any action items from last time. And I don't think if we, let's see. Uh, I did reach out to Evan. Evan, are you here right now?
Evan has a conflict and is in a different meeting right now.
Okay, yeah. Well, he told me that he asked somebody else to attend the SIG apps um, weekly call. And is that person maybe here to give an update at all?
As far as I know, we dropped the ball on that one while he was out last week. So we will definitely make it to the next one.
Okay, cool.
Apologies.
Sounds good. I'll just move these action items up to the next thing. So here's that. And move to next year. All right. And then there were some other things that were starting to happen. So aside from just talking to SIG apps, I know that the Red Hat folks wanted to build a prototype and then perhaps do a demo of this app discovery and like observability portion. So the for add-ons in particular. And then I think in our agenda, we have a demo if that person's available.
Yep, that's me. I can
Awesome.
uh, I
Cool.
can take it. Should be super quick.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and uh, rescind the presentation. Are you able to present now?
Let me see. I will try to put this on directly. Can you folks see this all right, or does it need to be increased in size?
Could you increase the font a little bit?
Let's go a little bit further. How's that?
I can do it. Thanks.
Yeah. So effectively, we just made a little controller to implement the custom resource definition we talked about last week, which was essentially just an aggregation of references to resources with conditions nested when they were found. So we have something doing exactly that. The link is in the agenda, the meeting agenda, and effectively every time this controller sees something with a specific label prefix followed by the name of the add-on that we want to talk about, it aggregates it into the status as an enhanced reference. So this is, we can't see the full picture because we're kind of large. But I have a few add-ons, quote unquote add-ons that I have here. One of them is Core DNS. So I have a kind cluster with Core DNS running on it. I will get that same one that's extended down. And you can see this is like a selection of the resources that I've labeled. So you got some deployments, some pods, namespaces, services. This starts to get really useful when you have things that are spread across an entire cluster. So this is like Core DNS has a few resources, but we can also do something like OLM. So here I have a set of OLM resources with a customized configuration to add a label onto it that names it as an add-on OLM. Just apply that to the cluster. So whenever this operator sees that label applied to a resource, it'll actually generate a one of these add-on resources here. And you can see that it pretty quickly picked up all the different resources um, that existed there. It even picks up problems with our custom resource definitions because it's, again, extracting those conditions and showing them here as part of the references. So like I said, this is super basic right now. It is dynamically watching discovery to find new things to add, so you don't have to do any sort of like annotating CRDs to get the controller to actually pick up your resources. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. So that's about it for now. Did anybody have any questions about this demo as it stands?
I think this looks really cool. I'm curious if, and I like the approach with just like having this piece be discoverable. I think, when we started the really early add-on work, we were kind of like, okay, well, we'll just use owner refs, and we can kind of traverse those and figure that out. But I don't know if that doesn't work for things like cross namespace objects. So having this be a little more abstract, I think is awesome. I'm curious if you see any sort of way to like aggregate status beyond the individual objects, or any sort of form of like way to describe all up health. Maybe that's not something you can solve generically. Maybe that's domain specific, but I'm curious if you see that working with this model.
You may be on mute if you're talking.
I am. Thank you. So yeah, like I said, right now this is using unstructured to basically unmarshal the conditions from the raw JSON into something that we expect. There was some stuff in the proposal that is also linked on this repository that talks about potentially having some sort of JSON path selector over a set of fields in a resource that we could then map back to a condition, which I think would be a pretty cool thing to do. The only thing that I'd be concerned about there is structural schema and what that looks like, if that like would violate structural schema. So that's my concerns, 2 cents.
That makes sense. Yeah, I like the aggregating of conditions. I think that's pretty cool. I think maybe we can think of ways on top of that, like look at this as a collector, and then think of ways to look at these conditions and infer some kind of status or something.
Maybe I missed it, but just could you show like a kubectl output for the kind? Like if you just get the kind.
Is that sufficient? You wanted the CRD?
I'm just like kind of, there's only one of these in the cluster right now, right?
Yeah. Oh, you want, sorry.
Yeah.
There's multiple. Actually, I described the add-on discovery as an add-on as well.
Ah, very cool. Okay. And then you're installing OLM like this, right? Maybe I need that as well.
Well, it's not really installing, but it's just like adding a customized layer on top of it that applies common labels to everything. But.
Right. Okay. Cool. Oh, and OLM is installed with customize?
OLM is installed as a set of manifests. I just use customize to get the labeling.
I see. Yeah.
But that is something that we'd like to do. Switch to customize.
That's really cool, because I know that the motivating kind of like force behind this, right, is like how do we make things more usable for people, right? And so then the tech enables us to kind of build these things around collections of objects that are grouped in some generic way we can use that generic mechanism to surface statuses and similar things about, how an add-on is packaged. And then, yeah, as new resources get created by the add-on operator, they could follow that label schema. That's pretty cool. So, and then you would even just be able to bundle this custom resource with it as an option, maybe.
Yeah, like as I was kind of alluding to before, like I think that there could be a potential future where in addition to the label on a resource, let me get one. You could have essentially an annotation that has the same prefix, but now that I know which operator or operators it belongs to, then the value could be like the stuff to fill in.
Would this get like really crazy unmanageable for like a daemon set on 1,000 nodes?
A daemon set on 1,000 nodes. I think you need to be careful about aggregating stuff like this because there's the 1 megabyte limit in like default cube etcd for the resources. I do think, however, it's better to have a place to see all of this stuff together and extracted than it is to have to go to all those resources and look at them yourself.
And then it should perform fine. Yeah.
Yeah, it obviously needs to perform fine. Like what I didn't get into before was now that we have this mechanism for adding things to a resource, we need some way of like protecting that. So like the first thought that comes to mind is, okay, well, I'll just put it in a mission webhook between all potential resources that could ever be and this, and then have some way for this controller to sign and accept based on the user identity, and then later on ensure that, this label that says that this is a component of this add-on was put there by somebody at some point who is authorized to do so. So that's a huge, thing we have to be careful of if we end up going further with this.
I really like this for an enterprise like management cluster. I think like the more layers that you can give somebody to understand what's running, like people will install those things, particularly when you are in a large cluster. And I'm always concerned in like keeping in mind those users, the edge users, right, who want minimal number of things running. And just keeping in mind what the overhead of running a controller like this would be, which would probably not be too much, but maybe unacceptable for a single node. So
yeah, we probably need to do some trick stuff. I just followed the cube garbage collection logic for dynamically adding informers to this, but we probably need to do some trick stuff where like we're preventing things from being cached unless there are resources on the cluster of that kind that have labeled, stuff like that.
And then you mentioned that this is collecting on label selector, but does it also follow owner references, or is that just left out?
That is left out for now.
Okay. Sweet.
Owner references have their problems.
It's really impressive the turnaround time that you folks display here, because it's not a small achievement. This is really cool. Thank you for demoing.
No problem. Thank you very much.
And cool. Well, I will go back to sharing. Sweet. Thanks so much for the demo. The next item is mine. It's just a quick notification that the Kubernetes PR has an upgrade implementation now, and I'm working on a rebase for an upstream refactor of some component config things. So the PR is not green at the moment, but it does contain both the init and upgrade functionality now as of the most recent commit. Also, thanks to Daniel for pushing some docs updates. And then, yeah, that's it on that update. Does anyone have any questions regarding add-on installer and kubedm and where that's kind of going? Cool. Well, I guess it's Jeff, take it away.
This one may be one to punt. The GitHub issue for Daniel started the like how to write an operator sort of doc
Okay.
a while back, and this is kind of one of those where it was early days, so we kind of started something, but maybe it wasn't totally ready. But now I think we're getting to the point where we're starting to understand things better.
Uh-huh.
So I'm curious what needs finished here before we think like we have like something that someone reasonably familiar with the project could follow. But it honestly might just be better to wait for when Daniel comes back to talk about that.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So there's the KubeBuilder patterns
Mhm.
that we started putting together, and they've got like a good baseline feature set, but I don't recall if we finished porting that pattern to be usable with V2.
The pattern, yeah, that works with V2 with controller runtime V2,
Mm-hmm.
and we are working on getting customized support in the operator itself.
Yeah, you had some initial patching logic that you're playing with, and then you're looking at maybe a little more customizing stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it looked like we were just going to continue to like. I think having a surface for patching is nice on the CRD, but there's just tons of, there's an expanding feature set of customized that's just nice for all manifests to have.
Absolutely, yeah. I would be very open to like factoring the add-on installer library in a way where the templating and patching portion of it is separate from the API and the application
Mhm.
of those manifests. So just like food for thought in the future, so we can have good interoperability and keep things maintained and working in a uniform fashion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They don't have to be the same right now. Like we can build them separately and then factor together.
Yeah, I think as long as we feel like customize is the right path forward, as long as we're pushing the mutations, so to speak, to customize,
Mm-hmm.
whether that means you're doing kubectl apply -k, or in our case, we're like creating an in-memory file system based on files we load, sticking it in there, and then doing customize run.
Yeah.
Then we aren't duplicating that transform type stuff.
Yeah, and you can use similar bases. You can have APIs that have the same inputs, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, because I was worried that we was going down the path. When I added patch, I was like, "Ooh, are we just going to add every customized feature here?" And I'm like, "Man, that's not good. That's not good."
Yeah. The shoot, what was I gonna say? Anyway. Oh yeah, I just I do think customizes a right path. Um, I don't want to leave our SIG apps folks, you know, in a different building. Um, and Helm 3 is very immature and has massive community usage. So I'm always willing to revisit that conversation. I think others probably are too. Um, but yeah, with the add-on installer API, the configuration component config, the customized ref is called out right specifically with the technology and the field name. So we may be able to extend upon that later on, if that's something that makes sense.
Yeah, it's good to have the flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, did anybody else have questions, concerns, things they wanted to bring up, stuff that they didn't add to the agenda? or anything they wanted to circle back to? Okay. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Nick, for the demo.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, and for doing that work. And then, yeah, good discussion. I think we'll close out. Appreciate everyone's time. And again, as a reminder, this will be the last meeting for this year. So we will not meet on, what is it, the 17th and the 24th, or whatever. We won't meet on the 24th. So our next meeting will be on, what is it, like the 6th or something. 7th. Yeah, January 7th, 2020. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you all later.
Yeah, have a great break, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Peace.